My best friend lied about why she needed money. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to get blindsided by someone I trusted more than anyone else in the world. I mean, you hear the stories online, on Reddit, or in some trashy late night TV special about best friends betraying each other, but it always seemed like something that happened to other people, not to someone like me. And yet, here I am, sitting in my apartment at midnight, replaying the night Rachel came to my door over and over in my head, trying to make sense of it. Rachel and I have been inseparable since we were 9 years old. I can still remember the exact moment we met. The first day of fourth grade, I had forgotten my lunch money and was standing by the lockers, mortified, when she came up and handed me a granola bar she had saved from breakfast. She didn't even know me, and yet, in that small, quiet gesture, she became my person. From that day on, we were practically joined at the hip. We shared everything, I mean everything. Secrets that would make other people blush, heartbreaks that left us both crying on the floor of one of our bedrooms, family fights that made us grateful we had each other. High school was the first real test of that bond. While everyone else was busy forming cliques and trying to look cool, Rachel and I had our own world. We were the weirdos in the back row of English class, passing notes with doodles and ridiculous nicknames and helping each other memorize lines for school plays. When I went through my first breakup, she sat on my bed for hours, holding my hand while I sobbed into a pillow. When her parents had that huge fight that nearly tore her family apart, I stayed up with her all night, promising that things would be okay, even though we were both terrified. She wasn't just my best friend. She was like a sister, the one I never had. And for as long as I could remember, I trusted her with my life. Not in some casual, oh yeah, she's reliable way, but with the kind of trust you don't even think about. She had my back and I had hers. That's just how it was. Fast forward to our mid-20s. Life had gotten complicated, as it always does. I had landed a stable job in a marketing firm, the kind where you're never rich, but you can pay your bills and treat yourself to a nice dinner once in a while. I liked the routine. It was safe, predictable. Rachel, on the other hand, was, well, Rachel. She had a part-time gig at a boutique and did some freelance photography on the side. She was talented, funny, beautiful, and completely chaotic. Money never seemed to stick with her, no matter how hard she tried. And I don't think she ever wanted it to. I loved her for it most days, but sometimes I worried about her. She'd talk about paying rent and bills with a sort of cavalier shrug that made me nervous. "It'll work out," she'd say, tossing her long brown hair over her shoulder and laughing, as if the universe owed her a favor. And honestly, in a way, she got by. She always had a way of making things work. Sometimes with luck, sometimes with charm, and sometimes, I'd find out later, with deception. I guess I should have seen it coming. It was a Thursday night. I had just gotten home from work, my favorite mug of tea steaming on the counter, and I was scrolling aimlessly through my phone, trying to unwind after a long day. That's when I heard the knock. At first, I thought it was a delivery guy, maybe some package I forgot I ordered. But when I opened the door, there she was, Rachel, standing there in her oversized hoodie, hair messy and eyes red. My heart sank before she even said a word. "Hey," she whispered, her voice breaking. I stepped aside so she could come in, and she practically collapsed on my couch. "Rach, what's wrong?" I asked, sitting next to her. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. It's my mom," she said, and I froze. Her mom was her rock, the one who had always been so patient with her, the one who had supported every crazy idea Rachel ever had. She's sick, really sick, and I don't know what to do." I could feel my stomach knot. I knew immediately she wasn't exaggerating. She never did that when it came to family. But the fear in her eyes, the raw panic in her voice, it hit me like a punch. How bad?" I asked softly. "Bad," she whispered again, and then she started shaking her head. "I don't have enough money. They said she needs treatment immediately," or she trailed off, unable to finish. My chest tightened. I didn't even think. I reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "How much do you need?" Rachel looked at me like I'd just offered her the world. She told me a number, and I could feel my pulse spike. It was a lot more than I had readily available, but I didn't hesitate. Because it was Rachel. Because her mom's life was at stake. Because that's what friends or sisters did. You helped, no questions asked. I told her I could help. I told her I'd get the money, no problem. I saw the relief wash over her face, and I swore I could hear her sobs soften just a little. She hugged me, her arms tight around my shoulders, and I hugged back, my heart full of both worry and love. And I thought everything was going to be okay. We spent the rest of the evening talking about her mom, about treatment options, about hospital visits and insurance forms. She kept crying into my shoulder, apologizing over and over for bothering me, and I kept telling her that it wasn't bothering me, that I wanted to help. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. That night, after she left, I stayed on the couch for hours, replaying every memory Rachel and I had ever shared. From the sleepovers in middle school, where we scared ourselves with ghost stories, to late night drives in high school, where we talked about our dreams, to my first apartment, when she helped me move in and stayed for 3 days straight just to make sure I wasn't lonely. I thought about all the times I had defended her, covered for her, trusted her implicitly, and I told myself, for the first time in a long time, that I would do anything for her. Anything. I didn't know it then, but that night was the beginning of the end. Because what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that the Rachel I knew, the Rachel I trusted with my life, was about to become a stranger. And the very thing I thought would bring us closer would be the thing that tore us apart. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the money, about her mom, about how much panic I'd seen in her eyes. I tried to imagine what it would be like if I were in her shoes, helpless and desperate. I kept telling myself that I was doing the right thing, that I was a good friend. Little did I know I was about to learn the most painful lesson of my life, that sometimes the people we love the most can lie to us in ways we never even imagined. And sometimes those lies are wrapped up in tears, desperation, and the exact trust we have in them. By the time I finally drifted off in the early hours of the morning, one thought was looping in my mind and I couldn't shake it. I would do anything for Rachel, but was she even the person I thought she was? I didn't have the answer yet, but soon enough I would. I never realized how much emotional weight a single conversation could carry until that Thursday night when Rachel dropped the bomb about her mom. I remember sitting across from her in my tiny living room, the dim lamp casting shadows on her tear-streaked face, her hands shaking as she clutched the throw pillow on the couch. She looked smaller than she ever had, like the weight of the world was pressing down on her shoulders. "I don't know what to do," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't have anyone else to turn to. I need your help." It was like a punch to the gut. I could feel my pulse spike. My rational brain was screaming, "Wait, think about this. What if it's not real?" But my heart immediately went into rescue mode. Because this was Rachel. She wouldn't lie about her mom. She would never, would she? She told me the number she needed, and honestly, it was more than I had sitting in my account comfortably. I had bills, rent, groceries, normal adult things. But when she started crying, the sobs racking her small frame, it didn't matter. I found myself reaching for my phone before I could even stop myself. I don't know why. I guess instinct. Years of friendship had trained me to prioritize her over my own sense of caution. "I can't let anything happen to her," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "If I can't pay for this, I'll lose my mom." The words dug into me deeper than anything else ever had. The way she said it, the raw fear in her eyes, it was impossible to ignore. My mind was screaming at me. "Think, this is a lot of money. Are you sure you can?" But every time I opened my mouth to question it, she would start crying harder and the guilt would wash over me like a tidal wave. "You're the only one I can trust," she whispered. Please help me." And just like that, my doubts evaporated. I told her I could get the money. I even promised I'd wire it over the next day. She hugged me like she'd been holding back a lifetime of gratitude, burying her face in my shoulder and murmuring "thank you" over and over. And for a moment, I felt like a hero. I was doing the right thing. I was helping someone I loved when they needed me most. But as I went about my day the next morning, getting the money together, a small voice in my head kept whispering doubts. I wasn't sure if it was paranoia or a premonition, but I couldn't shake it. Double check her story. Make sure everything makes sense. I rationalized it. It was normal to worry about details, especially when it was a large sum. Still, every time I thought about hesitation, Rachel's terrified face flashed before me. That image was enough to push me forward. I withdrew the money, trying not to let myself think about what could go wrong. I told myself that this was a friend in crisis, and in moments like this, you act first and question later. Once I had everything ready, I called her. She answered on the first ring, and I could hear the tremble in her voice again. I don't know how to thank you," she said. "I promise you're saving her life. I don't know what I'd do without you." Her words, dripping with gratitude and fear, made my chest tighten. I felt like I was being a good person, like I was fulfilling some unspoken duty that friendship demanded. And for the first few days after I transferred the money, I felt a strange pride. I was proud of myself for being there when it counted. But then the inconsistencies started. At first they were tiny, almost imperceptible. She would say something about the hospital, and a day later I'd hear a slightly different version of the story. She mentioned her mom's condition worsening at one point, and then I saw her post a picture online from a night out with friends, looking carefree and laughing. I told myself I was overthinking it. She had to find moments to breathe, right? Caring for a sick parent was exhausting. Then came the little things that gnawed at me. A mutual friend mentioned seeing Rachel at a cafe at a time she claimed to be at the hospital. Another friend casually mentioned a trip Rachel had taken that didn't fit with her timeline. My stomach dropped, but every time I confronted myself with it, I'd push the thought away. No, she's telling the truth. You just can't imagine how someone can be under pressure and still manage small things for themselves. Still, That nagging feeling refused to go away. It was like a mosquito buzzing at the edge of my consciousness, impossible to ignore. I found myself checking her social media obsessively, trying to reconcile the image I was seeing online with the desperate, tearful friend I had hugged on my couch. Each new post made the knot in my stomach tighten. One afternoon, she called me in a panic. "They're saying her treatment can't wait. If we don't pay now," her voice cracked, and I felt my chest tighten as I listened to her plead. I had already given her the money, but hearing her panic again made me feel like it wasn't enough. My rational brain wanted to scream, "Stop! Something isn't right." But the emotional part of me was frozen in place, willing her panic to be real, willing to believe her story. I started getting texts from her at all hours, updates about doctors, about hospital bills, about her mom's fluctuating condition. Some were hopeful, some filled with dread. She sent pictures of the hospital room, medical equipment, her mom in bed. But the pictures made me uneasy. They were close-ups, cropped in ways that never showed the bigger picture. And when I gently asked for more details, she would get defensive or cry again, claiming that it was too stressful, that I didn't understand. It was exhausting, emotionally draining, and still I felt proud. I felt like I was helping someone in a moment of pure need. I convinced myself that this is what friendship demanded: sacrifice, trust, unquestioning support. But then came a small detail that made me pause. A friend of mine mentioned seeing Rachel at a local store, buying something unrelated to the hospital, something expensive. I brushed it off immediately. Maybe she was running errands for her mom. Maybe it was medical supplies. My mind was grasping at straws, trying to preserve the image of the friend I had always trusted. And yet, the seed of doubt had been planted. I couldn't ignore it entirely. Every phone call, every text, every small inconsistency started to feel like a tiny crack in the foundation of our friendship. It wasn't enough to make me confront her, at least not yet, but it was enough to make me start noticing the things I hadn't before. For a while, I clung to the pride I felt. I told myself I was doing the right thing. I told myself that true friendship was tested in moments like this, and that being there for her, even if it was hard, was proof that I was loyal, that I was a good person. But underneath it all, a small, insistent voice kept whispering, "Something isn't right. Keep paying attention." I tried to shake it off, focused on the bigger picture: her mom's treatment, her fear, her desperation. I immersed myself in helping her, making phone calls, organizing paperwork, wiring money when needed. It was all consuming, but I didn't mind. I wanted to be the friend she needed me to be. And yet, somewhere deep down, the nagging doubt refused to die. A tiny part of me couldn't help but wonder, was she really being honest with me? Or was I being manipulated by someone I loved and trusted more than anyone else in the world? At that point, I didn't have the answer. I just had the panic, the guilt, the fear, and the unwavering desire to help. I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing, and for a while, I believed it. But little did I know, the inconsistencies I was noticing were just the beginning. The cracks in the story, subtle as they were, would eventually widen into a chasm that threatened to destroy the very foundation of our friendship. And I had no idea how deep the betrayal would go or how much it would hurt. That's the thing about trust. You give it freely to someone you love, thinking it's unshakable. And sometimes it turns out that it was fragile all along. Fragile enough for one person, one lie, one manipulation to shatter completely. I was about to learn that the hard way. I thought I had a handle on things after giving Rachel the money. For a brief, shining moment, I felt like a good friend, like someone who had done the right thing when it mattered most. But as the days turned into weeks, the first small cracks started to appear. At first, I tried to ignore them. I really did. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to cling to the idea that Rachel, the person I had trusted with my life since we were 9 years old, would never lie about something like this. But my gut kept gnawing at me, and little by little, my doubts began to grow. It started with the follow-up questions I asked. I tried to keep it casual, subtle, nothing that would make her feel cornered. "How's your mom doing?" I'd text, expecting a straightforward reply, and at first the answer seemed fine, but then she started dodging details. "She's stable," she'd say. "Just tired, that's all." When I pressed for more, she'd get defensive, saying she didn't want to worry me, that I had enough stress already. At first, I thought she was just protecting me from unnecessary worry. After all, I did work long hours, and I did have my own life to manage. But the tone in her replies started to shift, just slightly. The tiniest edge of irritation whenever I asked for specifics. Then came the comment from a mutual friend, Claire. I ran into her one Saturday morning at the cafe near my apartment. She waved, smiling, and then her face shifted when she noticed me. "Hey, can we talk?" she asked quietly, glancing around. My heart skipped a beat, but I nodded. We sat in a corner, and she leaned in, voice low. "Did Rachel tell you she went to the new rooftop bar last week?" she asked. I blinked. "What? No, she told me she was at the hospital with her mom all week." Claire's eyes widened. "Yeah, me too. But I saw her there, with friends, laughing, taking pictures. She wasn't alone. I mean, it looked like a party. I felt my stomach drop, my chest tightened. I wanted to argue, to say that maybe it was just a quick break, maybe she had stepped out for a few hours, but Claire seemed sincere. And as she described the scene, the image she painted didn't match up with the frantic, terrified girl who had shown up on my couch pleading for money. I tried to push it away. Maybe she needed a break. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe there's a reasonable explanation. I repeated it to myself like a mantra, but deep down, I couldn't shake the unease. Something didn't fit. That night, I decided to check her social media, something I hadn't done in a while. I rarely looked at Rachel's posts because I trusted her completely, but that afternoon with Claire had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. And there it was, a series of pictures. Rachel at a rooftop bar, glasses clinking, friends smiling, everyone laughing. The dates matched exactly with the time she had claimed her mom was in critical condition at the hospital. I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling. I felt sick. My chest tightened, a cold, hollow pit spreading in my stomach. The pictures didn't lie. They were timestamped, geotagged. She had been out, she had been partying, and my money was supposed to be helping her mom. I wanted to call her immediately, to confront her, to demand an explanation. But a voice inside my head stopped me. You've known her for 20 years. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe you're overreacting. I sat there for a long time, staring at the pictures, scrolling through more of her posts, trying to reconcile the image of my desperate, tearful best friend with the carefree girl on Instagram. I couldn't. My mind started replaying every interaction we'd had since she asked for the money. The defensive texts, the vague explanations, the way she got annoyed when I asked for details, the subtle guilt tripping, the "you're the only one I can count on" lines. It all made sense now. Too much sense. I felt like I'd been sleepwalking, blind to the warning signs that were there all along. But here's the thing, I still didn't want to believe it. I wanted so badly to trust her, to hold on to the history we shared. I kept thinking about our childhood, our sleepovers, the countless times we'd covered for each other, the moments we'd held each other when the world felt like it was falling apart. Could someone like her really betray me? Could she really lie about something this serious? I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself that maybe she had a legitimate reason for being out. Maybe her mom wasn't as critical as she made it sound. Maybe she needed a mental break. Maybe something. Anything. But even as I searched for excuses, the gut feeling persisted. A gnawing, relentless suspicion I couldn't shake. Over the next few days, I started paying attention to every little detail. Texts that seemed off, calls that were too brief, explanations that didn't add up. Each inconsistency, no matter how small, felt like a crack widening in a wall I had built over decades. I wanted to trust her, but the evidence was piling up and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Then came the final straw. One morning, I was at work, scrolling through my feed during lunch, and I stumbled upon a video she had posted on her story. She was laughing, holding a cocktail, surrounded by people I didn't know in a place I didn't recognize. The timestamp, exactly the same week she had told me she spent every day at her mom's bedside. My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I replayed the video a dozen times, each time hoping for some detail that would absolve her, some hint that there was a reasonable explanation. But there wasn't. Every frame screamed the truth. Rachel had lied to me. She had lied straight to my face, crying, pleading, manipulating me, and I had fallen for it completely. I felt a strange mixture of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. My hands shook as I put my phone down. The memories of our childhood flashed through my mind, all the moments we had shared, all the trust I had placed in her, and I couldn't reconcile them with the person who had taken my money under false pretenses. I wanted to confront her immediately, to demand answers, to scream until my voice gave out, but a tiny, cowardly part of me held back, whispering, maybe you're wrong, maybe there's an explanation, maybe you're overreacting. That part of me, the part that wanted to preserve our history, kept me from calling. And yet, the rational, growing suspicion couldn't be ignored. I had to know the truth. By the end of the week, I was exhausted, emotionally drained. I didn't know whether to feel hurt, betrayed, or foolish. Every time my phone buzzed with a message from her, my heart raced with anxiety and fear. Each text, each call, felt like a test I wasn't prepared to take, and through it all, one thought haunted me relentlessly. Where did my money actually go? I kept telling myself I was imagining things. I kept replaying our history, telling myself that she had always been there for me, that she would never hurt me like this. But deep down, I knew the truth was staring me in the face, unignorable, undeniable. The cracks in her story weren't small anymore. They were gaping chasms, and I had fallen straight into them. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to hold on to the Rachel I knew, the Rachel who had been my sister, my protector, my confidant. But evidence doesn't care about friendship, loyalty, or years of shared memories. Evidence only tells the truth, and the truth was ugly. Rachel had lied, and the betrayal wasn't just about money, it was about trust, history, and the foundation of a friendship I thought would never break. That realization hit me harder than anything else ever had. And at that moment, I understood that my life, my sense of security, and my understanding of friendship were about to be turned upside down. I just didn't know how far the damage went yet. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. Maybe I had misread everything. Maybe she really had a reason for being out when she said she was at the hospital. Maybe I was letting paranoia and fear twist the truth. But by the time Thursday rolled around, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't let the uncertainty eat away at me. I had to confront Rachel. I needed answers. Honest ones. I remember standing outside her apartment, my heart hammering in my chest, rehearsing what I was going to say 1,000 times. Part of me wanted to burst in screaming. Part of me wanted to cry, and part of me, some tiny, hopeful part, wanted to just believe that she'd tell me everything and that all my fears were wrong. I pressed the buzzer, and after what felt like an eternity, she opened the door. Her face lit up when she saw me, but I could tell she wasn't expecting the storm that was about to hit. "Hey," she said nervously, stepping aside to let me in. "Rachel, we need to talk," I said, my voice firmer than I expected. She frowned, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. "What about?" she asked, trying to sound casual. I didn't waste time. I dropped it all. The social media posts, the inconsistencies, the stories from mutual friends, the gut-wrenching suspicion I had been carrying for weeks. "Rachel, I saw your post. I talked to Claire. You were out partying, laughing, while you said your mom was in critical condition at the hospital. Where did the money I gave you actually go?" Her eyes widened, and for a split second, I thought I saw guilt. Then she straightened, squared her shoulders, and suddenly her expression shifted. "What are you talking about?" she asked, voice calm, controlled. "I don't know why you're saying these things. I've been stressed, yes, but you're twisting everything. You're making this into something it's not." I blinked. I had expected denial, but this was different. She was flipping it, making it seem like I was overreacting, like I was the one in the wrong. "Don't do that," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm not twisting anything. I'm asking you to be honest. Please. Did you lie to me?" She laughed softly, but there was a venom underneath it. "You're unbelievable. You always think the worst of me. I came to you for help, and this is how you treat me? You're supposed to be my best friend. Maybe you're not as supportive as you think." It was gaslighting, and it hit me like a punch. Every word, every tone was designed to make me doubt myself, to make me question my memory, my judgment, my trust in everything I knew about her. My chest felt heavy, and I struggled to breathe. For a moment, I wanted to believe her, to let the history of our friendship excuse this moment, this awful confrontation. But I couldn't. Not anymore. Something inside me snapped. I had given her money, trusted her completely, and she had lied straight to my face. I left that apartment that day feeling hollow, betrayed, and furious. I needed proof. I couldn't rely on my memory, my gut, or even mutual friends anymore. I needed something concrete. Over the next few days, I started digging. I called mutual acquaintances, asking casual questions about Rachel's activities. I tracked receipts, notes, and messages she had sent, anything that might give me a clearer picture. And slowly, painfully, the truth emerged. The money I had given her wasn't for her mom's treatment. It hadn't gone to the hospital, the doctors, or anything related to medical care. It had gone to pay off a debt she had been hiding for months, a gambling debt or a loan she had taken from someone shady, someone I didn't know. She had been in over her head for a while, pretending everything was fine while secretly scrambling to cover her mistakes. And she used me, her best friend, her sister in all but blood, to bail her out. I felt sick. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible. Every memory, every shared secret, every laugh, every tear we had ever exchanged suddenly felt like it had been tainted. She had manipulated me, used my trust and my love for her, and for what? To cover her own mistakes? To feed her own reckless behavior? I couldn't process it. I tried calling her, texting her, asking for explanations. She responded with half-truths, excuses, and blame. "I didn't know who else to turn to," she said. "You're overreacting. You think I'd hurt you? You're being paranoid." And that's when I realized something else. Friends started taking sides. Some people, mutual friends, saw her crying, heard her pleas, and believed her over me. They called me harsh, uncaring, cruel even. "Maybe she really was desperate," they said. "You don't know the whole story." Others sided with me, horrified by the manipulation and lies, shocked that someone could betray a friend so deeply. It became this ugly, painful division that made me feel even more isolated. The people I had trusted to be objective, to see the truth, were split. And I felt like I was standing in the middle of a battlefield with no backup. My trust began to crumble, not just in Rachel, but in people altogether. If someone I had known since I was 9 could lie so effortlessly, what did that mean about everyone else? Could I trust anyone? I didn't know anymore. I remember one night sitting on my couch staring at my phone, feeling like my entire world had shifted. The walls of my apartment, my safe space, suddenly felt suffocating. I felt small, powerless, foolish. How could I have been so blind? How could I have let someone I loved so deeply use me like this? The more I pieced together, the angrier I became. Every receipt, every message, every little detail that confirmed the lie fueled this fire inside me. I felt devastated. Yes, but also determined. Determined not to let her get away with it. Not to let the betrayal go unanswered. And yet, there was this strange ache too. A mourning for what I had thought we had. All the memories that used to bring me joy now twisted into reminders of deceit. It wasn't just money. It wasn't just manipulation. It was the realization that the person I loved like a sister could betray me so thoroughly. Eventually, I had to face the truth. Rachel had lied. She had used my trust and my love as a tool to cover her own mistakes, and in doing so, she had shattered my understanding of friendship and loyalty. I started distancing myself, trying to protect what was left of my dignity and sanity. But even as I did, the aftermath was painful. The friends who had defended her looked at me differently. Some avoided me, uncomfortable with the tension. Others offered silent support, but it was fractured, uncertain. I felt alone, in a way I hadn't since childhood. A hollow isolation that made me question not only Rachel, but everything I thought I knew about people. That was the moment I realized friendship could be dangerous, trust could be weaponized, and love, deep, unflinching, lifelong love, could be used against you in ways you never imagined. I was heartbroken, I was angry, I was betrayed, and most of all, I was beginning to understand that this was going to leave a permanent scar. Rachel had broken the bond we had built over decades. She had used me, lied to me, and manipulated me. And while I wanted to confront her one last time, to scream, cry, demand answers, I knew that whatever came next wouldn't restore what had been lost. The damage had been done. By the end of that week, I realized that some people were meant to hurt us, not out of malice necessarily, but because they are capable of choosing themselves over others in the most devastating ways. And Rachel, my best friend, my sister in all but name, had chosen herself. I was left to pick up the pieces, to rebuild my understanding of trust, loyalty, and friendship. And in that process, I began to see a new, harsher truth. People will betray you, sometimes in ways so personal it feels like a knife to the heart. And the only thing you can do is learn to stand again, stronger and more cautious than before. After I had uncovered the truth about Rachel, it felt like my whole world had tilted sideways. The comfortable, safe, unquestioned trust I had built with her over 20 years was gone, ripped out from under me in one cruel revelation. For a few days, I didn't know how to process it. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time my phone buzzed, I froze, heart racing, expecting to be her, expecting some clever excuse or another manipulation to worm its way into my head. She did call. Of course she did. Hey, can we talk? Her voice on the phone sounded fragile, almost apologetic. For a fleeting second, part of me, stupid, hopeful, loyal me, wanted to pick up. But I didn't. I let the call go to voicemail and listened to it again later, dissecting every word. She apologized? Yes, but it was half-hearted, coded in excuses. I didn't know who else to turn to, she said. I panicked. I didn't mean for things to get this bad. Her voice had that familiar quiver, the one she always used when she wanted me to feel guilty, the one that had worked on me countless times before. But this time, it didn't. It took me a long time to understand why. Maybe it was the sheer scale of her lie, the way she had used my trust so deliberately. Maybe it was the weight of knowing she had spent weeks living a lie while I scrambled to help. Maybe it was the memory of every tear, every word of panic, every desperate "please help me" that had gripped my chest when she came to my door. I wanted to feel empathy, to forgive, to salvage even a shred of what we had, but I couldn't. I called her. My voice was sharp, controlled, but my hands were shaking. Rachel, I want the money back, now. Every last cent. There was silence on the line, then a nervous laugh. I don't have it. Not right now. I can pay you back soon. I felt the heat rise in my chest. No, I want it now. You used that money for yourself, for gambling, for your debt. You lied to me. You manipulated me. You're going to fix this, and you're going to fix it now. She sputtered, tried to explain, tried to pivot, tried to twist it. I didn't think it would matter. You always want to help. I was desperate. You don't understand. But I did understand. I understood perfectly. I understood that the person I had loved, trusted, and called my sister in all but blood had just stolen from me in the most personal way possible. And she had the audacity to act like it was my fault for trusting her. The collapse of the friendship was inevitable after that. I blocked her number, removed her from every social media platform, deleted her from my contacts. I couldn't look at her face. I couldn't hear her voice. I couldn't be in the same space with the person who had used me so thoroughly, and yet the void she left was crushing. I spent nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory, every interaction, every shared laugh. I asked myself questions that had no easy answers. How did I not see it coming? Was I too trusting? Too naive? Was there a part of me that wanted to believe in her even when all the evidence screamed otherwise? Could I have done something differently? The anger came next. Slow, simmering, relentless anger that refused to let me sleep or eat or even think straight. Every text, every lie, every picture of her carefree life, while I had been helping her mom, or so I had thought, fueled a fire inside me. I realized that feeling sorry for her, feeling conflicted, even missing the friendship was pointless. She had made her choice. She had lied. She had used me, and I wasn't going to let her walk over me anymore. Determination replaced the anger, like a cold, focused blade sharpening itself inside me. I told myself I would reclaim what was mine. Not just the money, but my dignity, my trust, my self-respect. I refused to be the person who let betrayal define them. I refused to be her victim. I began to set boundaries. I stopped engaging with mutual friends who had defended her, realizing that aligning myself with truth sometimes meant cutting people off who were too caught up in blind loyalty to see reality. I documented everything. The texts, the social media posts, the inconsistencies, the conversations. I didn't need to expose her to the world, but I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't losing my mind, that my feelings were valid, that my judgment hadn't failed me completely. The emotional toll was brutal. There were mornings when I woke up with tears still in my eyes, when my chest felt like it had been crushed overnight. There were afternoons when a random memory of Rachel, laughing in the school hallway, holding my hand through a breakup, consoling me when I cried, made me ache with nostalgia and betrayal all at once. I hated myself for still feeling some love for her, for still wanting her to be the person I thought she was. But the truth is that love wasn't healthy anymore. It wasn't real. She had poisoned it with lies. And in recognizing that, I began to see a path forward. I didn't need her. I didn't need her excuses. I didn't need her manipulations. One day, after weeks of sleepless nights and emotional exhaustion, I deleted all the pictures I had of us together. Not out of malice, but as a symbol. I wasn't going to let her memory, what she had become, what she had done, linger in my life. I wasn't going to carry her betrayal like a weight around my neck forever. I started rebuilding my trust slowly, cautiously, with people who had proven themselves, even in small ways. I learned to ask questions, to notice inconsistencies, to hold my boundaries firmly. I learned that being kind and loyal didn't mean being a fool. That love didn't have to blind me to the truth. And most importantly, I learned to let go. Letting go of Rachel wasn't just about cutting her out of my life. It was about reclaiming myself, reclaiming the part of me that had been willing to sacrifice everything for someone who would never have done the same. Reclaiming the part of me that deserved honesty, respect, and real friendship. The collapse of our friendship was painful, yes. Heartbreaking, yes. But it was also liberating. I realized that some people are only meant to teach you lessons, no matter how dearly you pay for them. Rachel had taught me a painful, unforgettable lesson about trust, loyalty, and the limits of forgiveness. And as much as it hurt, I came out stronger on the other side. I don't speak to her anymore. I don't check up on her. I don't want to know where she is, what she's doing, or who she's manipulating next. The anger has dulled, replaced by clarity. I will never forget what she did, but I will also never let it define me. I am not her victim. I am not her pawn, and I will never let anyone, no matter how close, walk over me like that again. In the end, cutting her off wasn't just about ending a friendship. It was about reclaiming my life, my sanity, and my self-respect. It was about finally, painfully, understanding that some people will betray you and some friendships aren't meant to last forever. But the strength you find in surviving the betrayal, that is yours forever. And that is exactly what I intend to hold on to. After cutting Rachel out of my life, the days that followed were quieter in some ways, but louder in others. Silence can be deafening when it's filled with thoughts you don't want to face, and for a while, I was drowning in my own mind. Every morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach, replaying conversations, texts, and memories, wondering if I had missed something, if I had somehow invited this betrayal without realizing it. But slowly, I started to realize that the problem wasn't me, it was her. Betrayal from someone you love hurts in ways nothing else can touch. A stranger can lie, cheat, or deceive you, and you can grieve and move on. But when it's someone who has been with you through all the milestones, someone who knows your deepest fears and your most embarrassing moments, someone you trusted with your heart entirely, it's like the betrayal rewires your world. The foundation you built your life on feels cracked, and for a while, I didn't know if I could ever trust it again. The first step was acknowledging the pain. I didn't want to do it at first. I shoved it down, told myself I was overreacting, that I was being dramatic, but eventually I started journaling. I poured everything out, every emotion, every memory, every hurt. I wrote down the moments I had laughed with her, cried with her, defended her when no one else would. I wrote down the lies, the manipulation, the guilt she had heaped on me. Seeing it all on paper, raw and unfiltered, helped me externalize the chaos in my head. Therapy helped too. At first, I thought I didn't need it. I thought I was strong enough to handle it on my own. But talking to someone who didn't know Rachel, who didn't have history with her, who could just listen and validate my feelings, it was liberating. Slowly, I began to untangle the guilt I'd carried. Slowly, I began to understand that trusting her, loving her, and being there for her didn't make me weak. It made me human. Boundaries became my armor. I learned to recognize the early signs of manipulation, not just with Rachel, but in every relationship. I learned that it's okay to say no, it's okay to question, it's okay to protect yourself first. The process wasn't easy. It felt foreign at first to think of my needs as valid, to see myself as someone worthy of respect and honesty. But the more I practiced, the stronger I became. And then came the final confrontation. I wasn't seeking it. I wasn't waiting for it. But one day, out of the blue, I got a message from her. "I owe you the truth," it read. I stared at it, my chest tightening. For a moment, part of me wanted to delete it, to ignore it entirely, but curiosity and closure won out. I lied. The next message came. Everything I said about my mom, about the hospital, it was all a lie. I used the money for myself, for my debts. I know I hurt you. I know I broke you. I'm sorry, truly. I read it again, slowly, letting each word sink in. And then I felt nothing. Not the rush of anger, not the sting of betrayal, not even the satisfaction of hearing the truth confirmed. Nothing. Because I had already moved past needing her acknowledgement. Her admission didn't change the past. It didn't undo the lies. It didn't heal the wounds, but it did confirm what I had already known. The choice to betray me was hers, not mine. I replied simply, "I know." That was all. No recrimination, no long explanation, no anger, just acknowledgement. She had chosen her path. I had chosen mine. From that point on, I focused on rebuilding myself. I reconnected with friends who truly mattered, who valued honesty and trust. I invested in things that made me happy, not things that made me a tool for someone else's needs. I started taking better care of myself, physically, emotionally, mentally. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living for me, not for someone else's drama. The scars remained, of course, they always would. Every time I thought about Rachel, there was a flash of anger, a sting of disappointment, a pang of what I had lost. But the scars became a reminder, not a burden. They reminded me that I had survived something painful, that I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. I began to trust myself again, not in a naive, blind way, but in a careful, deliberate way. I trusted my instincts, my judgment, my ability to recognize red flags and act on them. I trusted that I could love, trust, and form meaningful bonds without losing myself in the process. And slowly, the heaviness lifted. The nights became easier. The mornings became lighter. I started laughing again without feeling guilty, smiling without thinking of what might go wrong, dreaming without fear. The journey wasn't over, and maybe it never fully is. Betrayal leaves a mark, but it doesn't define you. I had learned that the people closest to us can hurt us in unimaginable ways, but we can survive. We can rebuild. We can rise from the ashes of broken trust, stronger, smarter, and more capable than before. In the end, I walked away from Rachel not broken, not defeated, but alive. Scarred, yes, but stronger. Wiser, yes, but not bitter. I learned that some friendships aren't forever. Some people aren't who they pretend to be. And some betrayals are meant to teach you the value of trusting yourself first. And that's exactly what I did. I trusted myself. I healed, I grew, and I moved forward, knowing that even if life throws betrayal at you, you can survive and you can thrive. I'm not defined by the lies of others. I am defined by how I choose to rise above them. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.